Hey guys, Hub here again. In today's video, if you haven't read the title already, is going to be a more personal video. I've been debating with myself on whether I should make a video talking about this subject, but after watching I Hate Everything's video on this subject that he made a couple of years ago, I decided it would be a good idea to talk about something that's been a constant nuisance in my life, especially in recent years. Anxiety sucks. There's no sugarcoating it. Anxiety has been an issue that's been affecting my life since I was 10, and it's only getting worse as a 20-year-old. Let me give you a few disclaimers before I really talk about how anxiety has affected my life. 1. I'm not depressed. I've experienced the feelings of depression before, but I'm not diagnosed nor am I taking medication for depression. I think the most depressed I got was wanting to kill myself, but I never went through with it, of course, nor have I attempted to take my own life. 2. I have a stable home life. I have a good home life with everything I could possibly need and want, and I have a perfectly stable relationship with both my parents. And 3. This isn't a pitying video or made to get sympathy from others. I'm no stranger to the "oh, woe is me" card, but I'm not making this video so that others could feel bad for me. I'm making this video to get feelings I've bottled up for years off my chest, and while this won't completely eliminate my anxiety, it'll at least get these feelings out of my system so I can get to work on getting over them. I figured I'd get that information out of the way so I don't paint the picture of being someone whose life is completely horrible and has nothing going right for them, even if it does feel like that sometimes. Anyway, let's get into the video. Like I said, the first time I can recall experiencing anxiety was when I was 10 years old. I had then recently moved back to the state I was born in, and I was going into the 4th grade. And I was incredibly nervous because I was the new kid, and I didn't know anyone at the time. I remember 4th grade as a pretty brutal experience, as I was bullied for the first time in my life, I had a hard time making friends, and I always came off as being overly childish and gullible. I spent most of that year and 5th grade being kind of a loner, even though things mellowed out a bit in 5th grade. I talked to a few people I considered friends at the time, but I never hung out at their houses nor spent that much time with them. I was also picked on for having a crush on some girl. Looking back, she was totally out of my league, kinda like how every woman is for me these days, but more on that later. Now we get to middle school, or as I not so fondly remember it as, the 3 years of hell. Yeah, middle school was a terrible experience for me. 6th grade, however, started off great because I made my first real friend since I moved. It took me 2 years, but I did it. We got along very well, and we even had our own web show. This was during the time iCarly was popular, to give you an idea of when this was. He and I were bullied by this fuckwit whose name I can't remember and his goons. Yeah, he had goons. Go figure. This guy bullied me for the entirety of middle school, and no matter what I did to get him off my back, whether it was telling a teacher or principal, they never did anything about it, which gave me the impression that these people at my middle school just didn't give a single shit. Sadly, 7th grade was when all my problems really started. My friend and I had a falling out, and while he went out and got his own friends, I couldn't find friends because I didn't have much in common with the other kids. My friend eventually came back, but our friendship wasn't nearly as strong as he hung out with his friends more, and I felt like the third, really sixth, wheel. This continued into 8th grade, and while I was cool with all my classmates, I never hung out with them. However, after 8th grade, I moved again for the third time. Yeah, I forgot to mention that moving back to where I was born was the second time I had to move away. I was a little upset that I had to once again leave my home state, but at the same time, I didn't want to be bullied anymore by the moron that had been doing so for 3 years, so I accepted the move. This, of course, leads into high school. Before high school started, I was incredibly scared. Not only was I the new kid again, but given my experience in middle school, I was worried that I was going to be bullied even harder and I wouldn't make any friends, and the ones I do make will have another falling out. Thankfully, I wasn't bullied, and I managed to find a group of friends I still hang out with to this day, or at least a couple times a year, seeing as how we're all in college. During this time, I managed to get a girlfriend in my junior year. High school was looking to be a great time for me socially, and I felt like the anxiety problems I had in late elementary and middle school were over. But then, senior year happened. One of my friends, who isn't my friend anymore, called me Cancer for liking My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, despite him liking it himself at one point. This was during my Friendship is Magic high, for the record. I got really, really angry at this, and I wanted to get back at him. I even said that I wanted to bring tranquilizers to school and have him wear a shock collar to shock him every time he said something stupid. Guess who's the one who actually needed the shock collar and the tranquilizers? That's a whole other issue in and of itself, but I'll talk about that on a different day. My girlfriend at the time, understandably, got upset at this, and she left me because she had enough of my bullshit. I tried to get her to give me another chance, but she wouldn't budge. I stopped hanging out with all my friends because I was incredibly scared that I was going to fall out with them, and I did abandon them when I was with my ex at the time. Thankfully, they let me back in the group, but I still felt worried that they were going to drop me like a bad habit at some point, even if none of them had any reason to do so. I'm not justifying my behavior because I was a major asshole for the things I said, but I hadn't experienced anything like that since I moved to where I'm living now, and I couldn't handle it. I was shocked that my then friend would call me cancer for liking a goddamn show, and I just couldn't get over that fact. It's a shame that my attitude cost me the only relationship I had and will probably have. Yeah, let's talk about that now. Women and I don't have the best history. No, I'm not one of those incel types of people. But like I mentioned earlier, I had a crush on this girl in elementary school. However, I was a socially inept retard back then, so she was way above my league. It also didn't help that I didn't know how to talk to girls at the time, so I looked even stupider. In middle school, I had the odd crush or two, but nothing came from either of them. This was when I started using social media apps like Instagram and Kik. During high school, I got my first girlfriend through one of these apps. Of course, being 15 and 16-year-olds, the relationship didn't last, but not long after, I met the girl that I met at my school. I'm not sure how long the average high school relationship lasts, but I want to say 8 months is a pretty decent amount of time for that kind of relationship. Even now, I'm still shaken up from this relationship, not because it ended, but because someone I used to call my friend on the internet decided it was such a great idea to get together with her and not tell me about it until someone else told me. Because of that, I'm scared to make any friends and get into any relationships because my anxiety tells me I'm never going to be good enough for any women and that someone is just going to be better than me, come along, and take them, so why even bother? Okay, Hub, you might be saying, we get it. You've been bullied and you have a bad history with women. So what does this have to do with anxiety? Anxiety has everything to do with where I'm at right now. I always feel like I'm gonna fuck things up with people even if I have no reason to think that. I'm constantly told that the friendships I make in college are gonna matter and that I need to network, but seeing as how I've made no friends in college so far and how awful I am at networking, my chances of being successful in life are being scrutinized. I also doubt myself no matter what. I know I've been in a relationship before, and I know I can get into another one, but I'm so worried about how things could go wrong, I always tell myself, well, you'll fuck it up anyway, so it's better to not know instead of trying. The same thing goes for friends. For all I know, an opportunity of a lifetime could come, but then my friend could backstab me and ruin my chances at a better life. I know I shouldn't have such a pessimistic and defeatist outlook on stuff like this, but seeing as how my situation hasn't changed for the past few years, I'll continue to have this mindset until things do change. Instead of living in the moment, I worry about the ifs in life. What if things were different between my ex and I? What if we were still together? A lot of it stems from a desire to be in a relationship again, and while I have never been ashamed of who I am and the interests I have, no woman I know is going to go for me. I know I'm not making myself sound any better, but that's what anxiety does to you. It makes you think ridiculous shit like that, and I hate that I can't help it. Anxiety makes you think the worst shit is going to happen, even if there's no logical reason for it. This even goes to expressing my opinions and thoughts on stuff. For example, I like Star Wars The Last Jedi, but if I dare say that, I'm going to get several comments about how I'm a Disney shill and how I'm not a real Star Wars fan for liking the movie. People would think I'm a pussy for not speaking now, but maybe it's because I don't have the patience to deal with morons who think Rose Tico is the worst thing in the world. In fact, I've seen several cases of people who don't speak out against their anxiety because they're worried that they'll be looked at as weak and pathetic by doing so. This is why mental health needs to be researched and studied more instead of being thrown away as some useless field. Like I said, I'm not majorly depressed and I don't have a hard time sleeping or getting out of bed. I just feel like anxiety is a constant problem in my life, and despite my desire of wanting to get rid of it, I keep telling myself things aren't going to get any better. I keep getting told that things will get better, but I'm the type of person who doesn't believe things until they happen, and it hasn't happened yet, so I'm not believing it yet. I keep telling myself that I need to change and better my situation, but then my anxiety tells me no matter how hard I try, I'll never get anywhere in life. It's a constant struggle, and it makes even the simplest of social interactions a difficult task. I have a hard time reaching out to friends or people I haven't talked to in a while because I'm worried how they'll react or if they like or even care about me. Again, I'm not living in the moment or really living at all. I want to live, and I want to get back to the social highs and anxiety lows of most of my high school days. But I need to make that step if I ever want to do that. Then again, my anxiety keeps telling me otherwise and prevents me from doing anything so I don't get hurt again. But is it really keeping me from getting hurt, or is it hurting me even more by keeping me from experiencing life? I'm gonna say the latter. Thanks for sticking with me so far. That is, if you've even made it here. I know listening to me drone on about how much my life sucks is tiresome, but I wanted to let bottled up feelings I've had for years out of my system. And one way to combat anxiety is to talk about it. If anyone else has anxiety stories, whether they're experiencing them now or have managed to get through with combating it, please share your stories in the comment section of this video. With that said, this is Hapai, and thank you for watching. Take care.